Next, I want to talk about the agenda. Now, Tech Talk Tuesday, it came around the time of there was a lot of changes, right? We had a ton of changes. Now, we've gone through the one-to-one Chromebooks. We've got Windows 11 operating system updates. We changed the way we're printing. We just did a whole lot of summer of change. We're going to scale back. We're going to step back with Tech Talk Tuesday. And what we're going to do from here on out until we need to make adjustments is it's going to be the first Tuesday of each month, right? And it's basically going to be around topics and trends and just saying thanks, just like we did with the 5 stars. And so it's going to be around those 3 areas. And the trends, I'm going to start looking at the trends. I'm working with the sysadmin team, the printer team. I'm working with different teams to see if we could figure out some of these ticketing trends and to maybe create a better flow, a better workflow. So at the end of the day, our overarching goal is to minimize technology downtime. And we do that through the ticketing system and the way that you work the tickets. And so the topics that we're going to talk about, it's just a way to help level everyone up. So when you get tickets in your dashboard that have to do with these types of issues, we're all going to be on the same page, and we're going to know what the process is, what the troubleshooting flow is, and how to tackle these tickets. And essentially, it's just going to help your job be a heck of a lot easier in the end. And I like how Todd said that you guys are active in the Site Tech support chat. That's one of the tools that we can use. You've got the knowledge base. You also have Google. You can just reach out to one another. If you bump into issues, don't spin your wheels spending a lot of time on an issue. More than likely, one of us have seen that issue before. So it never hurts to reach out for help. We are a team, after all, to help each other out. So looking ahead, so we are in the month of January. And so the topic we're going to talk about today is accounts. So if you get those account-related tickets, I'm going to do my best to work with you on how to troubleshoot it, how to approach it. I did a lot of behind-the-scenes work leading up to this call, preparing for it, talking with Tony. Tony is our account expert of the district. He is amazing. And I believe he might even be on this call too. The month of February. So I don't know if you guys remember, you got a meeting invite from Acer, from Todd and Acer. At the end of January, we're going to have hands-on training with Acer Chromebooks. And I thought in February, the first Tuesday, that'll be a good time to talk about tackling Chromebook tickets and best practices with that. For March, we're going to dive into software. And I know software might seem scary, but this is actually going to be probably a relief for you because there's a whole list of software that you just don't put your hands on. And then April, we're going to talk networks. And as many of you know, we're trying to sunset the domain computers in the future, someday, one day. We don't have a date, but that'll be good to talk about networks and how to support network type tickets that come into your dashboard. And then we're going to wrap up in May, the first Tuesday in May, we're going to talk about inventory and what's the best practice? How can we manage inventory at our sites right before we ramp up into summer projects? So that's going to be our last 5 meetings of the school year. And then, of course, we'll take a break over summer projects during the months of June and July. And so we'll pick it back up, I think possibly the first Tuesday in August, but I know August is crazy. We might just let that settle, or it might be the first Tuesday in September. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. All right, so that's the agenda. I just wanted to give everyone kind of a heads up of where we're headed and what we're doing and kind of how we're transitioning Tech Talk Tuesday. So let's jump into accounts. There's different types of an accounts. And again, for accounts, I just want everyone to level up and kind of change our way of thinking when it comes to troubleshooting accounts. And some of this came from, we were seeing some ticket trends that were happening right before break. I know we had people that were having issues with sending out group emails and they were getting bounce backs and all that stuff. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in trends. But let's talk about this real quick, accounts. So one type of an account we have are student accounts. And believe it or not, the ETC in each of your building, they are equipped to be able to support and help student accounts. And so if you see a ticket in your dashboard that has to do with a student account, one of the first things you want to think about is, does the ETC know? Have they looked at this? Because the ETC can use rapid identity with a group to be able to reset student account passwords and be able to get them access. And when it comes to student accounts, time is of the essence, because you don't want a student to be prevented from instructional learning, right? You want them to be able to access what they need to access through the Google tenant, the Microsoft tenant, so on and so forth. Now, there are times where the student account, it might be locked or it might be marked risky. It's a risky account, flagged, marked, it's locked. That's when we need to team up with cyber. But before you just punt it over to cyber, what I want you guys to do is, as you're approaching student account tickets and you worked with your ETC, gather a screenshot or a screen recording and also get the student number. That's important because that's going to help minimize the downtime. Is just knowing, okay, what error message are they seeing exactly? And then have you duplicated the problem? Maybe the account's cleared up and they can log back in. Just have them try right there with you in real time. So just think about it that way when it comes to student accounts. The next thing is staff accounts. And I'm going to show you a little bit deeper. We're going to dive into Rapid ID here in just a moment. But staff accounts, that's going to be a little bit more where you as a site technician can really help out. And so Rapid ID, our first line of defense is I want people to have self-help steps, meaning you're going to be there alongside them, kind of giving them some steps of here's how you can reset your own password, here's how you can manage your own account, and here's how you can check to make sure your password is strong enough. HaveIBeenPwned.com. Sometimes staff accounts, they have a weak password, and that's why they keep going into this issue. I'm not going to name names, but we had some site tech on board, and they had the weakest passwords. We're like, you're going to have to come up with a stronger password, buddy. And thankfully, there's a password generator inside of Password Vault. And so if your issue's a weak password, you can get some ideas through Password Vault. But just make something, characters, numbers, letters, phrases, all of this stuff. Just check it against Have I Been Pwned? Because I guarantee you our CrowdStrike firewall, it's checking to see, okay, do you have a weak password? And if you do, you're probably going to get punted off. So we just got to be careful when it comes to that. But yeah, me.forsythk12.org, Rapid ID. You can also access it through Class Link. Once the user logs in the Class Link, you can access it yourself if you pull up an incognito window and log in elevated, and I'll show you here that I will show that to you here in just a moment. And then finally, we have sponsored accounts. Sponsored accounts, you might see the letter I or a C in front of it. And then those sponsored accounts, they're actually managed by the ETC on the site. So any sponsored account is sponsored on behalf of someone, and typically it's the ETC. And the biggest thing with that is when they log into Rapid ID, the ETC, you have to make sure that enable conditional access is turned on, and also that the account, the user has MFA set up as well. So that might be where you come in, is you're just simply helping them set up MFA with Duo. And yeah, hopefully everyone's using Duo. Microsoft Authenticator, we're trying to just sunset that and then put everyone on Duo. And as far as the licenses for Duo, we do have more. So now it really doesn't matter what type of account you have, whether it's a staff account or a sponsored account, you now have the ability to Duo, which is really nice. I know last school year we were kind of like, well, what's their position and what do they do? But now we don't have to worry about that as much. All right. I'm going to try to zoom in here. Let me see. Zooming in for you guys. Can I get a thumbs up? We're able to see. Okay, cool. All right, so when you go to me.forsythk12.org, and preferably you've got the user with you and they could just log into their own account, you can kind of take a look there. Or if they don't have access, then that's where you come in. You can open up an incognito window, log in with your elevated account at that website, me.forsythk12.org. Once you're logged in, there's a little drop down up here. Oh, I think I zoomed too far. Once you log in, there's a drop down at the top. See where it says people? It's circled in red. That's not what it's going to say at first. There's a drop down. You're going to go down, select people, and then you're going to go over to the school staff password management on the left. If you don't see that or you don't have access, just get with the sysadmin team. We can make sure you get access to that. And then over here where it says search, it's in the red box. That's where you type in the username of the person that you're helping out. And then once you type that in, then you select their user. Once you select their user, you can go down here and hit change password. Now, this is really important. I talked with Sean about this and Ben over in Cyber. They have to verify their user with the badge in person with you before you change their password. We've had in the past where people try to change passwords over the phone, but that's a no-no. You don't want to do that for security purposes. So you want to be face-to-face with the person and verify that user with their badge just to make sure that person is who they say they are before we change the password. Or if they've entered the password too many times and then they remember it, you can always unlock the account. You could do it that way. But change the password with them, preferably side by side, and that way they could type in their new password. And then once you get logged in, another helpful tool is, speaking of badge, if you go all the way to the right, when you select the user, it's going to say details. See where it says details? And then here you can edit the badge number. And that's going to help with things like paper cut, print deploy, because in the past, our printers were machine-based, and now it's user-based. And so the badge number, it started to matter. And so when you're troubleshooting an account-related issue, even something like paper cut, having that badge number updated, that's going to make a huge difference. I know many of you were kind of wondering, well, why don't they see any printers? It's because their badge number wasn't in Rapid ID. It wasn't registering the user when they try to authenticate. And then, of course, without a badge number, you're not going to be able to go badge print release the jobs. And because it was all user-based on that user can see this set of printers. And so that's a helpful way to troubleshoot it. I know at this point, many of you guys have probably already changed the badge number, but I just wanted to give a refresher of where to go and how to do that. The next thing I want to talk about is Microsoft. So accounts, you have different licenses like an A1 and A3 and that type of thing. So if you get a ticket, and I know a common one with Windows 11 is, oh, they don't have access to company portal, right? What was the problem? It was the difference between an A1 and an A3 license. And then I know several of you guys were calling us or messaging us saying, hey, can you check and see what license they have? But the power is actually at your fingertips. So if you go to the Rapid ID webpage and sign in and do just what I was telling you about with incognito, and you can look up that user, I'll show you how to look at their group membership here. Now with Microsoft, the interesting thing is if every user, every account person, they have to log in the class link and it creates a session. And we have this firewall called CrowdStrike. And sometimes the session expires. And so to authenticate a new session, have the user log in the class link and create a new session. The reason why that matters is if you're having issues with anything that's Office related, or they might not have access to a share drive or scan docs or something like that, they may have an expired session, or even Facebook.com. Some of the users are like, oh, I can't get on the Facebook. Have you authenticated a new session through ClassLink? And 9 times out of 10, they haven't. And so that's a really simple fix, is with the user there, just have them log into ClassLink and it will create a new session through the firewall, because otherwise the firewall is kind of bouncing them back and forth, and it doesn't know who that user is. It hasn't validated that person. So that's a really good fix. And then the A1 versus the A3 license, I'm going to give you guys a graphic here. So on the left-hand side, I've got an ETC. On the right-hand side, I've got a custodian. And here, if you log into Rapid ID, you can verify their group membership. And when you go to the details of that user and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the different groups that they're part of. And if you look at the difference, on the left-hand side, they've got faculty A3. So it says Office subscription faculty on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it says Office subscription non-faculty. That's the biggest difference between A3 and A1. Now, why don't we just give everyone A3 licenses? That's a good question. I talked that over with Tony. We have limited A3 licenses because it's not included with our subscription. We have to pay an additional cost per license. And that one we've got as limited. We have limited A3 licenses versus A1. Well, what's the difference between A1 and A3 license? Well, I sent in the chat, I sent a link that says Microsoft license. There's a knowledge-based article if you guys want to review that. It basically just goes over, it shows a little bit of the differences. There's a link to Microsoft, and it shows Really, the biggest thing is company portal. That's the one that you guys will all notice. And well, why is company portal a big deal? I know a lot of people were hung up on, well, they won't be able to install anything. But that's not true. With PDQ, we can deploy and we can push software to the machine. So even with someone with an A1 license, we can still take care of their software needs. It's no big deal. The other thing is with Teams, if you host a Teams call with an A3 license, you can use a phone number to have people dial in. With an A1 license, you cannot do that. It would just all be over data connection instead of a phone number. That's just a couple of differences. It's small, minute differences. I think there was something about Microsoft Clipchamp that's a difference between A3 and A1, but it's not a huge difference. But think about it monetarily for the district. It's like we have limited number of A3 licenses, so you want to base it on, well, who's requesting it, and that knowledge base article, it clears it up, because if they're not part of that group that needs A3 licenses, then they just need to stay on A1 license. No big deal. And we can still navigate and work with them and make sure that they're able to do their job with that specific license. We even have people that work here at a central office that are on A1 license. So it's not a huge deal if you don't have A3 versus A1. It's small, little differences. I just wanted to make you guys aware about that. And now, instead of having to wait on sysadmin. Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add one other kind of big thing with the difference between A1 and A3 is whether or not they can sign in on the installed version of Microsoft Office. So it will actually limit them. So the A1 is given to every school system in the state of Georgia for free for their staff, and that's why we have so many. But the A3, what we purchase, they can't go home and install Microsoft Office and sign into it with that A1 license. They're limited to the cloud version of Microsoft. So if you ever have somebody kind of fussing because they can't sign in to Excel or Word, it might be because they've got an A1 license.
Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate you chiming in there. Yeah, because there are some differences, and that might seem like a big difference to someone, but I think the more you guys have understanding as to, there is a difference, and depending on the type of user, and we do have limited licenses, just be aware of that. And now, because you have the power to see it in Rapid ID, you don't have to wait on sysadmin to confirm, okay, does this person have the right type of license? I just wanted to show you guys where that's at in Rapid ID. The other thing is with accounts in Microsoft is Outlook. And we have seen some tickets get pushed up that just anytime you see something Microsoft or Outlook, you think, oh, well, that's just immediately sysadmin. There's a couple things I want you guys to think about when you're troubleshooting an account-related ticket in your dashboard that has to do with Outlook. If you use OWA, that's Outlook Web Access, OWA, so that's the online version only. And if you go in the class link, you authenticate the user, and then you look for Outlook, you can get the OWA version. You just pull it up right there. Try to duplicate the issue using OWA first. And what that does is it rules out any software issues on the machine. But if they're only having problem with the Outlook installed software that's on the machine, then I would recommend, and I've done some troubleshooting, I've looked at this, there's an online repair option. And I'll show you guys how to do the online repair here in just a moment. Then the other thing you can do is you can look at, because the user themselves, they can set in Outlook their own rules, their own sharing, their own groups, etc. And that's something that sysadmin, we won't have access to see it. You actually have to be there with the user to modify their rules, the sharing, the groups, etc. Now, if you're if you're kind of unsure about, well, where do I go and how do I change that? There are some knowledge base articles under software and Outlook that'll show you the steps, or you can still get it up to sysadmin team, but just be aware that we'll need you and the user to be able to work with you at the same time. So then you're having to coordinate time to make that happen. Only because we have to be able to see what that user has set up in their Outlook. But let me show you how to do the software only online repair. It's pretty straightforward. So first you'll go to settings on the machine, then you go to apps, and then you look at the installed apps. And here I think I was trying to type in Office or Microsoft. It really didn't filter it that well. But what you want to look for is Microsoft 365 apps. Hit the little three dots and then do modify. Here you won't see it on the screen, but it's asking for my elevated rights. So you just type in your SA account, or if you have one of those checkout accounts, just type that in. And then you're going to do the online repair and then just simply click repair. That will take, I have run it before. It takes anywhere between 10 to maybe 15 minutes. It might seem like a while, but what it's doing is it's basically repairing it online. It's doing a full, fresh reinstall of those Office programs on the machine. But that's going to be the easiest way to do it. I used to use on Windows 10, it was, I think it was appwiz.cpl or CP1. I would do that in the search bar, but I was having trouble on Windows 11 until I found that workaround. You just go to apps, installed apps, and then you can modify it. But that's going to be an easy way to repair it. And that's also a good way to rule it out, is if it's working on OWA, but it's not working on the installed, you can do it that way. Or you can also look at the online version for Word, PowerPoint, Excel. It doesn't have to be Outlook, just any Microsoft product, because this will take care of and handle all the Office programs that are physically installed on the machine. You've got the thin client versus the thick client. So just wanted to give you guys that tool to be able to put into your tool belt as you're tackling those tickets. And that might be an easier, quicker fix than having to wait on collaboration with someone else. Okay, so let's talk at this point with accounts that have to do with Adobe. And I think we've kind of gone over this before, but this is an account related ticket. And so I put in the chat Adobe Creative Cloud. There's a knowledge base article. Only specific staff. Again, it's a number of licenses that we have. Only specific staff have access to Adobe Creative Cloud. And so that's one thing you want to consider. So you might have a teacher that says, hey, I'd like to have this. Check out the article. It really should just be for admin, ETCs, principals, assistant principals. Typically Adobe Creative Cloud is not going to be set automatically for teachers, only because we've limited the licenses. It's a cost per license. And so you have to start asking, is this something that they need? Or maybe they could utilize one of the staff on site to do what they need to do, instead of trying to get the license for that specific person. If the site decides they want to purchase it, they can always do that. They go through the technology department, purchase a license, then we can add it to that user. Not a big deal. It's user-based. We can check Rapid ID groups. Again, that's the power of groups. So if you log into Rapid ID incognito, slide it over to details and look at the groups, you can see, do they have Adobe? And here's a screenshot of it. See, you scroll down inside of details, look at groups, and it's the top one right there because it's alphabetized. So it's Adobe Creative Cloud staff. If they're part of that group, then they should be ready to rock and roll. And the best way to check it is if you go directly to the site. Let's see, on the knowledge base article, it talks about if you head over to creativecloud.adobe.com and then just have them log in with their @forsyth.k12.ga.us email, and then that will validate their access. Now, if they're having issues for some reason, again, get with sysadmin, and we'd be happy to make the adjustment, modify it, make sure that user is added into the group, and then synchronize, and then they should be good to go. And the synchronization might take a little bit of time, but I believe it's, what does it take, about 2 hours, Tony? Something like that. It's Adobe might be a little bit different. They may have to let it cook for a little bit longer, but either way, we'll make sure that they're part of the right group. But again, Rapid ID, it's a powerful tool, and I just want to make sure you guys can utilize it to your best as you're out there serving your sites and working on these account-related tickets. Next, I'm going to talk about ticket trends. There's a few trends we had. One of them is I was kind of looking at the trends of anytime we escalate to sysadmin, I was making sure our quality of work was good. As you guys remember last call, we want to make sure you have the MAC address, the IP address, you've got the machine name, the username, you have a screenshot or a screen recording if applicable for error messages. But I talked with George and he was saying, well, people are escalating the printer team and there's not a whole lot of information. So we're trying to level up, and I want to make sure that you guys are gathering information, because when we think of printer team, the team is really just one guy. It's George. And he's supporting the whole district. He's doing these printer rollouts, and we really need to help him to be able to help us. And that way we're spending less time trying to chase information. So here's what information I had worked with George on about before you escalate to printer. Here's some things to think about, some things to look at. Okay. First off is configuration page, especially on a new printer install. We got to have that configuration page, attach that to the ticket each and every time. That's going to be a huge help. Configuration page. Now the one with the badge, there's a way to get to it through, you could just take a picture with your phone. I'll show you guys that. If you look at the knowledge base article oh yeah, George, go ahead.
Sorry, it takes me a second to mic on. Okay. Hey, real quick. Yeah, great. Config page to the ticket. I can't stress this enough. Please refrain from cropping. Nothing is unimportant. Believe me. Make sure we get the whole 8.5 by 11. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Configuration page. It's going to be huge. You don't want to see like ticket submitted, ticket in progress, and then escalated to printer team, and there's no configuration page. We do have the power to remove the team from your ticket, or we could just say awaiting on tech response, something like that. We're going to punt the ball back to your court if that happens. So just be aware, you have been told. The configuration page is going to have pertinent detail like the serial number, the MAC address, the IP address. And of course, when you read the IP address, you want to make sure it's a 10.site, whatever site you're at, .80, 80 is the magic number, .port. And that's going to be important, is to make sure it's getting communication. You don't want to see something that's like a .192 or 196 or something like that. It's got to be .80. Inside of Incident IQ, is the asset updated? Check the site, check the room number, be specific on the location, admin, printer, title as necessary. So, and then the DHCP reservation, we've talked about this in the past, but inside of IIQ, you can edit the asset and check for that DHCP reservation. For some of you more technically inclined people, you can also use the Microsoft Management Console, MMC Console, to review the DHCP existing reservations. And then, is the label visible on the printer? I added this. I think George liked it too, but anytime you get a printer ticket, let's make sure they're labeled, because we want to make sure every printer is labeled in the whole district. It's going to make it a heck of a lot easier, especially with print deploy, paper cut, as people are trying to find, okay, where's my printer? They got to have the label. And the labeling, I like the naming system. It's very straightforward, very easy. It just follows the IP address scheme. So here, we've got, if you look in IIQ, here's an example. If you scroll down the meta information, you're going to look at the LAN MAC address. If that's missing, that's where we need you, the site technician, to enter that MAC address. And on the back end, there's a webhook for printers that does all the magic work. Now that webhook, it's worked maybe 90% of the time, but there are times where it may not work, and George is going to talk about what to do if that happens. And we have put some more power at your fingertips to be able to fix that. And then here it shows a DHCP reservation. Now, if it's missing a DHCP reservation and the MAC address, you'll need to enter the MAC address. It's alphanumeric, lowercase, and there's no spaces or colons or anything like that. Just it's alphanumeric. And make sure it's powered off, and it may take up to 2 hours for it to register a DHCP reservation. That means you can tackle more tickets, come back, take a look at IIQ, check and see if it's got the reservation. Once it's got the reservation, then we can power it back on and go ahead and get everything to rock and roll and check for it. And that's where you can work with George if you're continuing to have issues at that point. But you want to make sure all the general information's in there. It's in service. It's got the right model. It's got the right location, the right room, the asset tag, the serial number, all of that stuff. Make sure it looks good. Okay. I'm going to show you right here. This is a quick little video. This shows you what do you do if you don't get the DHCP reservation. It's been 2 hours. How do you fix it? And it's going to be Site-Engine. So here it goes. So first, you're going to log in incognito, elevated account, and go to Site-Engine through ClassLink. I don't know if you've noticed that icon before, but this is our Extreme Cloud IQ Site-Engine. Go to the control on the left-hand side and go to In-System Groups. And we have a group, and I believe it's alphabetized FCSS. Yes, FCSS, and it's printers.
Mike, it's FCSS _ Printers, all
Printers all Mac. Okay, there it is. Yeah, printers all Mac. I'm sorry, I was blanking at printers. And then here you can type in that MAC address and you can add it to that table. And that's going to be specifically helpful whenever you're not registering the .80 or getting the right IP address. But from here, I'm going to hand it over to George, and he's going to talk about scenarios where maybe you want to use the site engine versus the Incident IQ method.
Thanks, Mike. To Mike's point, really 90% of the time, we feel that the automated process through IIQ should process the MAC address into its correct format in that table that Mike was showing you. Along with in the description, it's going to pull information such as the IP, and you will not have to bother with this task. Currently, we're having issues. It was working, and having some issues to where it just really couldn't remain working. Therefore, I had to manually make these entries to keep us in production. So until you hear otherwise, right now we are actually having to do this task. So along with the printer support, for what we need you to look at prior to escalation is one of the PDFs, and the other is how to do the whole process. I've got a PDF in there. I got some really big pictures. It's really kind of cut and dry. Just got to make sure to add and to save, and you will see the printer. You'll need to reboot that printer one time when you add it, and you will see the printer have the correct IP address immediately. Again, when we notify you that the process is now functional, it is automated, and you do not need to do this task. We'll let you know, and you'll just basically make your standard MAC entry, all your information in Incident IQ, save it, and about 2 hours when you see Incident IQ give you a IP address, boot your printer and verify. Once you've done that and you verify that this printer has the correct IP address, okay, that's when you can contact me and I can get this printer on the print server and into the right zone, into the right group and paper cut. One printer takes me less than 20 minutes. I want to really just cover that printer support issue real quick, and I'm the one who actually created that, so please take a look. Read it, review it. It's 2 pages. It's really big text, so it's going to go quick. I hope I'm pretty insightful with this. Again, no detail is unimportant in certain measures of when you're out there on site, but the key is to get there to get answers to the questions. This really greases the wheels and gets us closer to resolve on the tickets. Mike, I think I pretty much covered what I needed to cover. The print support for escalation was pretty cut and clear. You really got the process going quickly for the how to add the MAC. It's actually written out there as well. That's just a 2-pager, real quick, real easy. But if you have issues with that, please let me know. Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. And yeah, so that knowledge base I sent in the chat for printer tickets, it's got his attachments as PDFs as well. And it's really helpful. Again, it's another tool in your tool belt to be able to add the MAC address and get that DHCP reservation if for some reason IIQ's being funky or it's not working the way it's supposed to with that webhook. It's not really IIQ, it's just a webhook script that works in the background. And that may need to be modified or something. But in the meantime, yeah, it's working a majority of the time. It's just that for those one-offs, then you want to go to the site engine, add that. But just as a recap, printer escalations, make sure we get that config page. It's got all the pertinent information. Make sure we attach the asset to the ticket. Make sure we check and look for the DHCP reservation. And finally, just make sure you take a visual and look at the label. If it's missing a label, go ahead and make a label, put it on the printer. That would be a huge help to George because, again, his team, it's one guy just running the district and he's doing a printer rollout. So let's help him to be able to help us. So I appreciate you guys. I've got a couple of trends I just wanted to mention real quickly here. I know we're getting close. I might go about 5 minutes over just to let you guys know. Windows 11 Ethernet. Okay, I know there were several of us asking about that right before break, even as we're coming back. I did confirm with Thomas, I think it was yesterday yesterday I talked to him about right now it's working a majority of the time. Now we're just looking at some one-offs. And so what we would ask from you guys as a site tech, as you're on site, as you've got eyes on the machine, have we updated all the drivers in BIOS? So if it's Dell, if it's HP, you can use the Dell command to update all the drivers BIOS. We also have a PDQ. We can push it, just get us the machine name. Also with HP Support Assist, make sure you're running all the drivers, the BIOS updates. Make sure that that's up to date. Gather for us the machine name, the MAC address, and the IP address. You're thinking, well, why all three? It's really going to help us to be able to identify why it's not presenting the certificate properly, to go ahead and get that fixed. There is an Azure Intune group that we've been adding these machines to, and that'll help it to get the certificate presented properly. That way, when it's connected to Ethernet, it'll flow through perfectly. And yes, once you have that information, contact sysadmin, but also be available. It's a little frustrating if you're like, all right, here's the information, but let's arrange a time or a good time to be able to discuss this or talk about it together and be able to get that fixed, just to be able to see in real time, okay, is it working now that it's added to the group, and to make sure it's flowing through. But I know Sean and Eric, they did an incredible job. They were fixing policies. They found an issue where it was presenting too many certificates, and now it's just presenting the one. And so everything, again, it looks like it is flowing through. If you have machines that are unplugged with Ethernet currently, let's go back and plug them in, especially front office, and then just confirm with us to make sure that those are working. I don't even care if we see a surge of, hey, I need help. We really need to get these things back on Ethernet. Ethernet's king. That's going to be the way to go. I like Ethernet the best myself. So, all right, one more thing. Windows 11 Ethernet. I just wanted to make you guys aware about that. And then Gmail spam. Tony forwarded me an email. He was in contact with someone from Google, and they were kind of working, I think it was Tony and Eric, they were working together to figure out, why are we getting bounce backs or spam from Gmail recipients? Well, one of the things is if a teacher is trying to send something that's heavily formatted, it's got way too many pictures, JPEGs, way too many image content or videos or URLs. It's a heavy format. It may create a bounce back because Gmail has really upped their spam filter. So just be careful with that, especially if it's like a newsletter. They may want to consider making a newsletter online. I think S'more makes one. They have other services that make online newsletters, and then they could just link the parents to that instead of trying to put it all into an email. The other thing is don't include yourself. So if you have, I have teacher whoever is trying to send it to the group, plus they're going to add their own name as the recipient, that may create like some kind of spam loop saying, oh, well, this is obviously spam. And then smaller batches. I know the limit's 100, but you don't want to get like right at 100. Hopefully they don't have 100 parents, but I know some of these high school teachers that have several class periods, they're going to have a rather large recipient group. So they may want to limit those batches, maybe make group A, group B, or however they want to name it. And then also the other thing is sometimes there were some invalid email recipients. And so it's just a misspelling, fat finger, they typed it wrong. And so that's where you may want to check with the group and just kind of double check with the teacher or the user, whoever created the group email, to be able to say, okay, do we have proper spelling? Do you have the dots and the comms and the .net and, the spelling, is it Yahoo or Yahoo? Too many O's. Or, well, this is all specifically Gmail, I'm sorry, but maybe one extra L for Gmail. But that's something we discovered with our Gmail contact with Google, is that's what was happening. So that's just a little bit of tips and tricks as we were seeing that trend. Now, one more thing is I do want to start, if you're seeing an issue pop up once in your dashboard and then it pops up again and then again, I want to know about those trends. And so I created a QR code where you scan it with your phone. And if you scan that, it'll put my contact information in your phone. Contact me, reach out to me, let me know as soon as you see trends. I'd love to know, because as we build out the knowledge base, as we build out these trainings, and as we're helping the district, we really want to see, okay, let's combine the trends with some solutions. And as we get more solutions and we see less trends, then you guys can finally breathe. and then the job gets a whole lot easier at that point. So do you guys have any questions? I know we covered a lot of content and gave you guys a lot of info about printers and accounts and all that stuff.
Hey, can I hit one quick thing on tickets?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to send a picture in the chat just so everybody has it. But just a reminder from the last meeting, it was mentioned, I have started shifting tickets around. So if you notice on your dashboard and Incident IQ, there's some low priority tickets and some medium priority tickets. And that red circle that I put in the chat, that is the red circle is our tickets overall, 533. But if you look, and I can't really see it, but it's 200 and some odd tickets that are medium. Those are tickets that are active that we're working at this time. And then the low priority, those are mostly going to be billing and the information systems department. So what I'm doing is shifting the tickets that are kind of sitting in limbo, whether it's Ross approving software or Angela doing billing, they're getting shifted around. So in that blue circle, you can see the ones that are assigned to those locations. And again, those are all low priority. But now your building should reflect a little bit closer to what actually is needed to be done in that building, just so you're not looking at your building and seeing I have 80 tickets, but 40 of them are in billing. So I just wanted to give you a reminder of that, and just know that we're also tagging all the tickets with the original location. So if you look at your ticket in the right corner, you'll see a tag, and that is where when the ticket's created, it came from. And that's how we're keeping up with the ticket. Once it goes into billing, we know where it came from based on the tag. But that's it.
I like it. I tried to share the picture with the group. Hopefully everyone saw that, but yeah, it's in the chat too. Well, I do want to thank everyone for your time. I know we're at 3:06 right now, and I'll let you guys get back to your sites as you wrap up your day, and we'll see you guys next month. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.